There's the sustainability reason to consume less and the resilience reason. And they're both important, and it's interesting how much overlap there is between the practices of sustainability and the practices of resilience. In this context, there seems to be almost 100% overlap. The same practices of self-sufficiency, frugality, exploring renewable energy can take the same form whether you're being driven by sustainability reasons or wanting to be able to adapt if you find yourself with less money or with a more insecure financial situation or a contracting economy.
Hi, I'm Helen.
I'm Sam.
We live here in Coburg, which is about 7 kilometres north of the Melbourne city centre, with our son who's 12. It's a fairly standard 3-bedroom weatherboard house on about 1/10 of an acre. So when I moved here to this house in 2004, had a very lovely green lawn at the front and a garden at the back with lawn and a few natives, but it wasn't a productive space. So one of the first things that I did was dig some veggie beds. And over the years, Sam moved in, we worked together and planted fruit trees at the back, and then started doing some more work at the front, expanded the areas there. So it's now become a really productive space. Producing food in our home is a really important part of this, certainly for me. And then cooking that food, preserving it, and just enjoying it.
The more you read about environmental problems, the more you read about social justice issues, the more you learn that the world's going in a difficult direction. We're grossly over-consuming the planet's resources. There are literally billions around the world who are, by any humane sense, under-consuming, and yet even the richest nations, even the richest people are still seeming to seek ever more and more. If it's the case that we're in ecological overshoot, while billions still need to lift their material living standards in some form to live well, that implies that the most over-consuming nations and regions of the world need to contract, not through recession, but through sort of planned, deliberate contraction. That's what degrowth means. And it seems to me to be the only coherent way to move toward one planet living.
This is our solar dish, and it works like a stovetop. So you just pop a kettle or saucepan on there. Uses the power of the sun to heat up. And the other great thing about it is that it packs down really neatly, so it's pretty portable as well.
One of my passions and concerns is the role of energy in the civilization that we find ourselves in. There's this widespread idea that we'll simply be able to transition to green energy, solar panels or even nuclear power, and maintain this way of life. I've come to the position that we probably can't run a globalized consumer society purely on renewable energy, and that's made us think through a range of energy practices that are trying to build resilience and to kind of deal thoughtfully, coherently with the problems of peak oil and climate change. In our suburban plot, we have started by putting solar panels on the roof. About 5 years ago, we put 2 kilowatts on. And then when we disconnected from gas about 6 months ago, we put another 4 kilowatts on. This is our most recent and perhaps unusual renewable energy technology. It's a biogas digester, which we call Betty. We have been putting in about 1.5 kilograms of food waste into the biogas digester, and over the last 4 months it's provided essentially all of our cooking gas, and I've also set up a biogas hot water system, and it's connected to an outside shower, so it doesn't replace our indoor hot water system, but it does supplement it. We don't produce enough food waste to feed it ourselves. Once a week I bike down to the local fruit and veggie market, hop into their bin and take about 10 kilograms of food. Biogas is produced when organic matter biodegrades in the absence of oxygen, and when it does that it produces a mixture of gases which can be used to provide a number of energy services, from cooking to heating space to lighting and heating water. It's been an incredible means of providing clean, green, free, net zero carbon emissions energy in it. For me, the first year of doctoral study, you have this extraordinary privilege of essentially having to read a lot, and through that exposure to environmental literature, social justice literature, I came across the writings of Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau's message essentially is to explore the good life in non-materialistic ways, and that struck a chord with me, and I guess most of my work has been about thinking through the politics and the macroeconomics of that notion of sufficiency. It just made sense if there were certain problems that had certain solutions, even if they were vague solutions and uncertain solutions, to try to explore them in practice. That's been the experiment of our household in the last decade. It's been a process, not a destination, and it will probably remain a process.
My upbringing was very much centred around growing your own food and making things and repairing things, not necessarily for environmental reasons, more related to being less wasteful and being self-sufficient. So being able to be somewhere like this where I've been able to practice it has been really good. I think it's been a bit of an evolution rather than a sudden change. For me, certainly it wasn't a case of waking up overnight and saying, I've got to change something.
We have this 1/10 of an acre in Melbourne suburbia, and we recognise that there is a privilege that comes with that, and that not everybody can access, especially in Melbourne. Like, we probably wouldn't be able to afford this house if it was purchased today. These practices are available to us, but not necessarily universally available, and I think that's important for people to recognise.
Some of Sam's ideas seemed quite radical. I've needed, on occasion, a bit of persuading to adopt those, but actually they've turned out pretty well. So no regrets at all. People ask me how do you have time for all the stuff that you do. I work 4 days a week, but it's partly about making time. It's about prioritising work in the garden or cooking or sewing over watching TV, something like that. But it's a really enjoyable activity to get out in the garden and harvest food. So it's about valuing the process as well as enjoying the outcome.
And, we both have been able to work about 4 days a week each, which again we recognise as a privilege. But also it's been enabled by us being pretty frugal and thoughtful with money, and practising voluntary simplicity, living as simply as we can in a material sense. And When you kind of go through the various aspects of a household's outgoings, you can often find that it can be trimmed.
So this is our car. We generally don't use it all that often because we cycle or we take public transport most of the time. So we recently put it on the car next door platform. It enables people that are close by to rent your car when you're not using it. So it's all done through an app. When somebody books the car in the available time, they're given a code for the lockbox, and the person can then go and get the key and off they go. When a borrower takes our car, they pay a daily or an hourly charge, and they pay per kilometre. We then get a little bit of income at the end of each month. It means that not so many cars are necessarily on the road at one time. So far it's worked really well for us, so we're able to book out the car when we do need it, and the rest of the time other people can book it. Otherwise our car would have been sitting in the driveway doing nothing, so it's win-win.
There'll be, again, households that won't be able to tighten the belt easily, but I think in Australian affluent society there are lots of households that would be able to consume considerably less, and that means you're less committed to working those hours to pay for that consumption. That's the kind of key trade-off and the most attractive self-interested argument about this way of life, is that you're exchanging superfluous consumption for more time, more freedom. It looks as if the burden is going to be on individuals, households and communities to be the prime driver for change. And so it's not that that's necessarily the best or the most efficient way to do it, but if people come to the conclusion that they can't rely on governments, then it follows that the drivers for change have to be ordinary people at the grassroots level getting active. And so that's what's motivated us to do everything we can here, but household action in itself has its limitations. These are ultimately systemic structural problems. Then the question becomes, how can household action help change those structures? I think that's where community engagement becomes important and collective action becomes important, and also to think through the question of how structures change. There will never be a politics or a macroeconomics of sufficiency until there is a culture that demands it. We feel the need to try to practice our values in our context, knowing that household action is a necessary part of any change, but ultimately the problems of the environment and social justice issues are systemic issues. There's a deep self-interest in practicing this way of life as well. Like it has the background motivations for environmental and social justice reasons, but ultimately we're living, what we feel happier, better, richer, freer lives because we don't need to fund high consumption living.
Somehow just right. If you've got land, grow food. If you have the opportunity to buy something second-hand, why would you buy it new? If you can ride a bike, why would you take a car? But it just feels right to do things that way.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching another Happen Films short.
It was really cool to explore another urban example of resilience, and we're excited to be doing more of that in the future.
If you'd like to help us make that happen, please consider supporting us on Patreon.
There's a link in the description below the video which you can click and find out more info on how to do that.
Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next film.
Bye guys.